This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
I've got a lot of grandbabies, like a lot. And when it comes to finding a gift for each of them, it could add up. But this year, while I was making my way through Walmart, I realized I don't have to spend a lot to get the gifts they'll love.
An OPI mini mani set! I'm gonna do so much nail art.
Oh yeah! A Lego set! Might own a Walla water bottle!
Ooh, and that's just half of them.
Shop great gifts they're sure to love for $25 and under at Walmart.
Money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
I wasn't enjoying dealing with the powers that be, and I didn't feel that we were all pulling in the same direction, and I felt as a consequence that maybe understanding and knowing when it's the right time for you and maybe the right time for everybody. But I made a commitment to the players back in 2021 that I would see this through until the end, rain or shine, and I stuck by that. I confirmed to the players in probably December of 2023 that, look, we've got some important missions ahead, but that I would be stepping aside from coaching the team at the end of the season.
Welcome to U.S. Rugby Happy Hour Live. Interviews with the biggest names in American rugby.
The New England Free Jacks, Major League Rugby champions. One-on-one to score.
Here are your hosts, Bill Baker and that other guy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of U.S. Rugby Happy Hour Live. This is our kickoff best of series, and we think is one of our favorites also. It's with Mike Friday, at the time of the interview, the former USA Men's Sevens head coach. Mike had a lot to share and was very candid about his time with the Sevens program, about a decade, or right on a decade, and the reasons why he was leaving, going on to the next chapter of his life, and also the players, the future of the program, and it's in good hands with a new head coach coming up. We didn't know who the new head coach was taking over for him during this broadcast, but he does allude to how good the future looks for the team and for Olympic medaling and for the HSBC series and everything else. So here's our best of episode with Mike Friday. Hey, Mike.
Oh, yeah. How are we, Dad?
Good. We are very honored to have you back on, and I know you've always been great to be on the show. And one thing in our notes we talked about is how open you are to doing these interviews with us and other podcasters and media in the country. So seriously, thank you so much.
No, I mean, as part of the role as a custodian to spread the word and try and bring rugby to the masses is that if you've got the job, you've got to be there to be shot at. You've got to be there to be talked to. It is what it is. You can't please everybody all the time, that's for sure, especially in the American rugby landscape. But
oh, yeah.
What you can do is be there to meet the positive and the negatives and the criticism head on. And that's what it's about. That's about spreading the word of the game.
And I will, hopefully we'll keep Fitzy from yelling at you too much today. So basically, this is our exit interview with you, okay? This is you're leaving the job. No one has sanctioned us to do this. We're just doing it on our own. So, Mike, let's start off. Let's just start off where we left off. This the last few weeks, Paris Olympics. We just talked about it briefly prior to the show. Generally speaking, Mike, what held the team back? Let's say from medaling. Was it a mixture of maybe just too many team errors, or really tough competition as well?
Well, I think we've got to have perspective here first and foremost. So is the men's competition brutally competitive? Yes. I mean, there was 10 teams from 12, I think, that could have medalled. Which, you know, it's no disrespect to the women's competition, but there's probably 4 teams that were in that, and then Canada definitely gate crashed it. So I think there's that piece. I think, look, when we actually then look at the rugby aspect, which is what we need to focus on, the on-pitch rugby aspect, I think there's 2 things at play. I think, firstly, we made too many mistakes with ball in hand. Our defence was monumental. The boys were resilient. They were fantastic. They were last-ditch. They chased everything. They hounded everything. They chased everything down, and we were very, very potent defensively. But we just gave the ball back too easily when we got it ourselves. We didn't, you know, and we can talk about the Fiji game where our kickoff pod receipt work wasn't up to scratch, and that was a little bit of an Achilles heel in the tournament. And we can talk about just the silly little errors which gifted possession back, which hurt us so badly in that Australia game. You know, I think we got the ball back 4 times and managed to give it back to them within 10 seconds of having it. And in a very tight game, that's the difference between winning and losing. So that's the rugby reason. I also think, when I say the perspective, I think the most important piece for us all to consider is that this group is very young on their journey. Like, yes, there's Perry, yes, there's Kayvon, and yes, we brought Matai back and Madison came back for the final year. But, you know, I would probably say 8 of that 14 are kind of 2-3 years into their journey, which will be a 6 or 7 year journey. And very similar to how the team was progressing and became very potent in 18-19 before COVID. This is the journey that these boys are on. And this was, dare I say it, their kind of Rio 2016 to get them ready for LA 2028. Yes, we were capable of medaling. Yes, we went there with expectation of medaling, but we also knew how hard it was going to be. And we also need to understand where these boys are on the journey. Now, you know, don't get me wrong. When you look at the girls, this was their time to medal, and they delivered on their sliding doors moment. They absolutely blew the doors off and delivered. And I have real great faith in, if we can keep the group together and they can have consistency of resource, consistency of funding, consistency of just kind of belief from USA Rugby and all of the stakeholders, then I think they could cause some serious problems in LA 2028. I really, really do. So, like, with what's happened with the group, it's almost become, it's expected. There's a belief that the USA Sevens men should deliver, and that's a wonderful place, because back when I arrived in 2014, there was no belief. The program was all but done. I think USOPC gave us a less than 10% chance of qualifying for the Olympics.
Wow.
So where we are now today, where everybody in the USA Rugby landscape expects USA Men's to be in the mix, right? And that's a great thing to expect, and we expect that. And that's the responsibility that comes with wearing the jersey now, which for me is the most important thing, that we believe, and more importantly, USA believe, and the world rugby community respect and fear the USA Sevens teams when they come to play. And I think that's where we are right now.
Yeah, Mike, as you just taking a step back here, I guess, like, bigger picture and looking back at the previous Olympics, and I know that was different, right? Tokyo, it was, you know, delayed a year, and then there were no fans in attendance, right, because of COVID. But did you treat this Olympics maybe differently than Tokyo in terms of play, competition, etc.?
I'd probably say no. I just think the group were at a different stage. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to hide from the fact, like, in Tokyo, that was a sliding doors moment. We should have been in those medal rounds, right? We were 19-0 up, and we allowed ourselves to get distracted and lose a game that we should have won. And that group have to live with that, and we have to live with that moment, because we had to deal with all of the COVID, and that hurt us as a group. And, you know, it galvanized certain rugby nations in that time. It didn't help us as much as we tried to work our way through it. But that was that group. That was USA Men's Sevens time to medal and move the needle, and we didn't achieve that. So going into this tournament, like I said, we were the most consistent team after Ireland in the World Series. Yet the format and the way that they did the placing games meant that we ended up in that dogfight, which again was ridiculous. Our World Series performance across the season warranted us probably finishing 5th or 6th, which probably felt about right, and it's where we were as a group. As a group, they were getting into quarterfinals consistently. We were performing in the group stages, but we were having this kind of quarterfinal hiccup. Very similar to the 18-19 group in the 17-18 season. And I think this is what people have to realise and understand, that when you're involving a brand new team, which is all intents and purposes what we were doing, even though there were a couple of elder statesmen, it's a 6-year process. Argentina back in 16 and 17 was struggling. By the time they got to the 2021, and now they're a fully cohesive unit that dominated the world. So I don't think we approached it differently, if I'm honest with you. I just think it's a nature of where we are, but I think the future is very bright, and everybody should be excited about what this team is capable of in the future.
Mike, I wanted to talk individually about one game and just kind of like the in strategy, calculus about certain things to do, right? So, I mean, you talked about it. You guys were in a group of death, running out there against the host nation towards the end of the game, right? Deep in our own zone, it's tied up, right? The kick out, right? And I think a lot of people were thinking, what are they doing? It's tied. Like, they could go for it, not realizing there were additional points to be had there, table points there. But I guess, walk us through that. Was that just something you guys were always aware of? Like, if we're tied in this situation and we know we can nab points here, this is something that we got to do, even if it goes against our, competitive, we want to score, try, spirit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest. That decision rests with me. That's the players executing my decision on the sideline. Yes, you could argue,
but it worked though. It worked.
It did work, but let's be perfectly blunt as well. Half of the USA Rugby landscape weren't happy with it because it's not the American mentality, right? It's win or lose. But the rules changed for the Olympics. Had it been the World Series, we would have had to have played, and we would have played, and we would have had to have won the game. Or we might have kicked it out and gone for extra time and fancied ourselves. But in that instance, we knew we were in the group of death. I mean, the reality is the gold and silver medalists were in there. And we had to get out of the group, and I knew a draw would be enough if we then did what we needed to do in the next game. Being candid with you, being honest with you, I thought we were more than capable of beating Fiji. And the way we started that game, we were. But our kick-off receipt work let us down and allowed them into the game. Then we had to chase the game before half-time. Well, that's the worst thing to do against Fijians because they panic you, and fair play they did. The positive I took from that was we won the second half. But that was a game that got away from us, which is sadly how it can be against Fiji. And then I knew we had to go out and deliver against a very robust, resilient Uruguayan team. But I knew that we had the beatings of that, and it was about getting to the quarterfinals because that's when you have your opportunity to shoot your shot and compete for the medal rounds. And I don't regret the decision. I take full ownership of the decision. And if anybody wants to shout and get angry, don't get angry at the players, get angry at me. But what an unbelievable opening game to be part of. It was so loud in there.
Yeah.
It was deafening, and it was an electric atmosphere to be a part of. And we had France on the rack. France got back in the game. We then had them on the rack again, but it wasn't the time to gamble. It just wasn't the time to gamble.
Mike, you mentioned the women's match earlier. Another electric, that bronze medal match for them. Another electric event. So 2 questions for you. A, were you there for that? And B, obviously, this is going to help the women's game out quite a bit, especially in the United States. Do you see a direct effect to the men's game as well because of their success?
So I'll be honest with you. I was watching it, but I was watching it live on television from my house in the UK because I had to come home because my youngest son was in hospital, having just come back from the World Cup and got an infected eye. So it was a traumatic time for me at the Olympics, as it was with my son hospital, having just won the World Cup the week before, having to come home. So I did come home to check he was okay, but I watched the final, and it was a sliding doors moment. You know, I mean, there was everything in that game, and the women believed, they hung in there. You know, a little bit of fortune goes their way with Package dropping the ball over the line, and then the Australia score, and then that kickoff, and then they just played their strategy, and then Smith, who had been the most dangerous player in the last 5 or 6 weeks when you're watching in the lead up to the Olympics, comes up, and that was the last person Australia wanted to break free, but she found a way. She did it, and it was beautiful. It was lovely, and it was a joy to see. And obviously the repercussions for them with Kang coming in with the donation, I think will certainly solidify the women's program. Do I think it can have a knock-on effect on the men's program? Personally, I think it could do, but not necessarily in a good way. But I think, as you know, the way that we're built and the way that we're funded via USOPC on a heavily basis. And I question in the lead up to LA 2028 whether or not they will back more of their possible medal contenders than the kamikaze world of men's sevens, where, as I said to you, on the women's side, no disrespect, there were 4 teams going for those medals, and then Canada gate crashed the party. An amazing story. Their story is absolutely box office, dismantling everybody and 7 minutes away from the gold. And then when you look at the men's competition, which on any given Sunday, there's at least 10 teams that can medal. So I am fearful of our funding, and you know what we need to find, being candid with you, and we might as well get that out there. We need somebody to match Michelle Kang with a similar donation for 4 years to the men's program. And politically now, that's an easy thing for anybody to do. And there are some great people out there, hopefully, that will get behind this men's sevens program for the next 4 years, because I'm telling you, they're 2 or 3 years into their journey and they're going to peak at LA. They just need the opportunity, they need the resources, they need the consistency, and they need the money. And money talks in America, sadly. You know, everything costs money. And USA Rugby have got to come to the party. And let's not forget, right, we've got the Golden Eagles, who for the last decade have been the unsung heroes for both programs. Like over the last 10 years, they have put in about $10 million. And in the last 6 years, they've supported both programs. And off the back of COVID, if we hadn't had the Golden Eagles, both programs would have closed. It is that straightforward. It is that simple. And when nobody was there, they were there. Now, Kang's come forward. That's brilliant. Let's hope more people come forward. But let's also fully appreciate and recognise the Golden Eagles have been the godfathers and the godmothers for both of these programs to ensure that the women got to the position to win that bronze, and the men are in a very strong position moving forward. And they've delivered some great times over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Mike, maybe some other knock-on effects here. I'd love to get your thoughts on. We saw some big-name 15s players have impacts on their squads, right? You're giggling already. Of course, you picked on the pod there. Do you think that is a trend that's going to continue, or it seems like the game's getting more specialized these days, and it really does.
Well, especially around the Olympics or World Cups.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think it differs from the women's game to the men's game. So I think, with where the rugby maturity is on the women's game, I think it still very much suits you to players that can do both. They can specialise, but it's very easy to cross over from one to the other. I think that will become harder as each year moves on, right? And if you look at it on the women's side, for example, right, Ellie Kildan, who's probably going to win World Player of the Year, right, on the women's side, she struggled to transfer over, right? They still come up with some great little moments and so forth. But you could quite easily see a Madison Levi going to the 15s game in the World Cup and tearing up. We've seen Sarah here and here, we've seen Portia Woodburn, we've seen Blythe, we've seen all of those do it there. And, our girls on the US, Ilona Marr, those girls, Lev Kelter, they've all been able to go between the two. So I think the women's has still got a lot of synergies. When we look at the men's game, let's just say that DuPont is the exception. The bloke is an unbelievable rugby player.
Yeah.
But most importantly, he probably is one of the physically most fittest rugby players in the 15 game, which then allows him to transition across. So let's just say let's move Fiji to the side here for 1 second, because for a Hugo Keenan, who's a very competent player coming for Ireland, he did okay, and he's very, very, very fit, one of the fittest players in the Northern Hemisphere. But he came up with some moments. DuPont was box office. Not his attacking stuff, but also his defensive stuff, but he is the exception, not the norm. Yeah. Like he's a one-off, he's got a neck like a cow and he's just fantastic, but he also breathes confidence into the other 11 players around him, right? And when the French are confident, everybody's in danger. I think the exception is the Fijians, because the Fijians play a game at a different tempo, right? Where actually fitness is not the paramount and everything. It is about tempo. It is about the way that they attack and the way that they play in ebbs and flows. So you saw two players from the Drua that came across that probably weren't the fittest that they could be, but actually fitted in nicely and brought some real physicality as well as some guile to the way that the Fijians played, which allowed them to then kind of upskill themselves and play to a higher level. So the Fijians will always be able to go from 2 or 4th, but that's because they're brought up playing sevens from the age of 5, one-touch sevens on the Fijian beaches, on the Fijian pitches. It's in their blood. So for them to come between the two is very, very different. For everybody else, I think it is a kind of a 6-9 month transition, and I think we could see a few more do it in 28, potentially. What I think was special about DuPont was he went back and forth.
Yeah.
And everywhere he went, he won. I mean, he won the top 14. He won the European Cup in 15s, which is no small feat. He then won that one-off in Madrid. He went to LA and won LA for him. And then he came to the Olympics and they won that. Now, that's a DuPont effect, not only because he's a very good rugby player that added value, but as I said, because he injected confidence and belief into the 12, 13 young Frenchmen that were around him. And it's a powerful combination. And especially in the game of sevens where hungry, young, athletic rugby players, are a handful to deal with.
Yeah. All right, Mike, here's the part of the interview where we start talking about you, okay? This might be where we get the most comments, probably. I don't know what they're going to say. Anyway, so USA Rugby's announcement of you leaving the program, in there was, you said you told the players at the beginning of the 24 season that this would be your last. Why this year? Why now? And was that always the plan?
Why this year? Why now? So, no, I'll be honest with you. I think the last couple of years have taken its toll on me. I mean, let's be perfectly candid. Since bankruptcy for 6 years, I've pretty much been on my own. There's been a vacuum above me in terms of direction and leadership. And I had to deal with the whole of that RAN scenario, which put the players in the program and compromised us, having no time off. Perry and Kayvon had no time off for 3.5 years.
Wow.
So once they finished RAN, we had to take them off for 12 weeks. The like, same for Joe Schroeder and Steve Thomason. So, and I wasn't enjoying dealing with the powers that be, and I didn't feel that we were all pulling in the same direction. And I felt, as a consequence, that maybe understanding and knowing when it's the right time for you, and maybe the right time for everybody. But I made a commitment to the players back in 2021 that I would see this through until the end, rain or shine, for good or for bad. And I stuck by that. I confirmed to the players in probably December of 2023 that, look, we've got some important missions ahead, but that I would be stepping aside from coaching the team at the end of the season. And that, that can be interpreted one of two ways, right? They're not going to check out because ultimately everybody wants to do well for their country, and everybody wants to make the Olympic squad, and everybody wants to go and win a medal. So, you know, I hear all these things. Oh, you know, how does that affect the mental psyche of a player? Well, people need to understand elite professional athletes. They're winners first and foremost, and they want to play for their country and their family and do the best they can for them. And you know, my job was to give real autonomy in that period, but also allow USA Rugby time to plan. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I wanted it all to be out in the open before the Olympics, but it was Phil and it was USA Rugby's choice to do it after the Olympics. And I respected that. It didn't diminish my determination in the job, my commitment in the job, my fight in the job. Yeah. I'm still fighting to the last day, to the last minute of the last day. But yeah, it just feels right. 10 years, I've done a lot. I feel we haven't won every game, but we have won tournaments. Yeah, we've come very, very close. But most importantly, we've gone from being a rugby nation that was nearly washed up to believing that we belong and believing that we should be at the top table, and a world that respects us. And then with that comes the responsibility, right? As we've talked about, because all of a sudden everybody expects you to win all of the time, and if you don't win, then either the players are doing something wrong or the coach is doing something wrong. And sometimes you've got to realise that we have made mistakes 100%, but not intentionally, and that's players learning. But you know, everybody is doing everything they can to represent the country in the best possible light. So yeah, it just felt right, if I'm honest with you.
It's time. So, Mike, if you don't mind, share with us that last meeting you had with the team after the games were over. Could you discuss that meeting at all? You know, were there a bunch of grown men crying? You know, what was your message to the team at that point?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The message to the team was because, and probably the game that probably where we had to really come to terms with was after that quarter final. Yeah. And I was very clear with the guys. Obviously, I'm very proud of everything that they've done and where they've grown to, what they've become, not just as rugby players, but as men. Because ultimately, you forget that these are young men that are trying to find their way as human beings and mature as men in this kind of goldfish bowl of being a rugby player. And I'm very clear in everything we do that rugby's what you do, not who you are. You have to have your own identity as a human being, as a person, in order to succeed in life. But my important message to them was exactly that: was results don't define you. You know, they come and they go, but they don't define you as a person. You know, we were insanely disappointed, upset. There were tears because we'd lost the game and our dream was over and shattered, and all of those emotions that come with it. But, you know, it was a mixture of, you know, appreciation, sadness, just a cocktail of bereavement, right?
Yeah.
And we had to get up and go again the next day. And, you know, again, I look at that Ireland game. We're winning that game 14-12. All we've got to do is catch the kick-off, kick it out, and we win the game. And we make a silly little mistake, give away a penalty, and they score and go onto the sticks and win the game. And it's like, and it's like your kids. It's like, that's just where they are. And that's my underlying fact to all of them is like, you need to persevere. You need to be resilient to the knocks that life gives you and realize it isn't fair. And you need to come back stronger, be better, and be ready for what's coming next. Because those of you that are staying, and there is such a talented young lot that are staying, you've got a responsibility to take this forward, you know, and be a dog and fight for everything. So that was the kind of the messages. And we didn't have a big end of speech, and we didn't have all that, you know, it very much, because ultimately, again, like all of these players had families there. They needed to see families. Families had spent a lot of money to get here, to see them, to support them, and they had limited time with them, you know. And so we went, a lot of us went separate ways, kind of immediately the day or so afterwards. I had to get home to see my youngest,
Yeah.
But we all came back together on the day after the women had won the bronze. We were all in Paris, and we were all at a dinner, rightly so, with the Golden Eagles, to come together to realise and recognise the journey we've been on the last 10 years, and more importantly, to kind of hand the baton over to those that will continue to take us forward, and to take that challenge and meet it head on. And the Golden Eagles are going nowhere. And that's a great thing for the programme, a great thing for both programmes. But they can't do it on their own. And that's the reality of this, right? And nor should they be expected to do it on their own. We need USA Rugby. We need World Rugby. We need to find that matching donor. And we need USOPC to believe. And it's because it was what an event, right? It was unbelievable over the 6 days, right? And we need World Rugby to invest in sevens as a whole, because it's the only truly global game that we have. Rugby 15s, it's an old boys network, right? Played around the world, but ultimately we know who's going to win it. One of 4 teams, one of 5 max. You can't say that on the sevens. We could get there to a position, like I said, we're already at 1 of 10 that can medal, and that can become more, and it can be developing nations, because you can get and you can fight your way into it. Whereas on the 15s, you need the evolution of a front 5. That takes generations.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, before we look forward, I wanted to look back just a little bit more to the start of your tenure with USA Rugby in the men's sevens program. You mentioned the sevens team had a less than 10% chance of qualifying for those Rio Olympics. It seems like you relish taking on big challenges in your career. Is that fair to say?
I love it. I love making a difference. I love proving people wrong. And I think that comes from probably a little bit of my upbringing. I mean, I was from a state school upbringing, not in the traditional private school upbringing that you have in rugby in this country. I played soccer, and I had to fight my way into this rugby world, and so forth. So I love the underdog. I love taking things with potential, and I love making people believe in something. And, that was kind of when I got involved with England on the coaching front, where again, we were not living up to our potential to become where we became. When I went to Kenya, again, fabulous kind of journey to take them to kind of number 4 in the world. And then the same with the USA boys, and the legacy is not about winning and losing. Do you know what I mean? That's nice. Medals are lovely, great, but what's more important is creating belief in an individual and in a rugby nation that they deserve to belong. And I think we've done that. And I think there's still more to go. And that's what makes it more exciting. It's just not me that's doing that. It's for the next person. And that's the circle of life. And that's how it should be. And I just I'll be watching from afar, but I'll be desperately advocating for this mob to do what they are capable of doing in 2028.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
And back to the show. So, sorry, I just got sidetracked there. So, Mike, earlier you mentioned this being a young team, despite the older guys of the team as well, but overall a young team. So, talk about that future of the 7 sides. There's got to be plenty of other young talent out there as well. I mean, we just saw the Club Sevens Championships came out there, some phenomenal talent. So, talk about the future and why we should be really excited about it.
Well, I mean, I was just like, let's look at the boys that are there, right? So you've got Bizer, 23 years old. You've got Lucas Camp, 22 years. You've got Peter V, 21 years old.
Right.
I mean, they're 3 amazing talents. You've got Neymar Fuelau, he's 25. Again, he's been with us a long time, but he's only 25, and he's a tempo playmaker. They take time to mature. Fuelau didn't get to his A game until he was 28, 29. You've got a young Adam Channel that's finding his way. We've got Aaron Cummings. Again, he came from the club game, but he's just found his voice, his feet, his physicality. He's found that in the last 12 months, but he's taken him 24, 36 months to get there. So again, what will he be like in 2 or 3 years' time? So when you start looking at that, then you look at the likes of Jack Wenzeling, You look at the like of Ryan Santos. You look at Tala Talapusi, who were left at home that didn't quite make it to this group. Then all of a sudden you add a young Peter Seo Jr. who's been training with the group the last 12, 18 months. You've got a Nick Hardwick who's been in and around the group for the last 12, 18 months, finished his colleges this year. You've got Noah Brown, who we sent to MLR for a year. You've got Will Chevalier, we sent to the MLR for a year. You've then got the likes of a Toei Angelo, who's returned from his mission, and in about 6 or 9 months, he'll be fit, ready to go. I mean, he's the nearest thing to Makarenefi that we will have seen. He's a perfect blend of Makarenefi and Martin Yosefo.
Wow.
Again, we get this guy back. You get a Rufus McLean now who becomes eligible for the US in 25. A 24, 25-year-old man who understands what it is to do international rugby. So all of a sudden you start seeing this and you're like, well, hold on a minute, Jesus. This is an interesting group. And that's before, as you say, we start to unveil the under-23s, which is a new young group that will be playing in Rugby Town, that we've been nurturing, which we'll see the first glimpses of them. Now, I don't expect them to follow last year's group and win Rugby Town. Don't write them off. But let's see where this group is in a year or two's time. We had an under-18 group that we had in the bomb squad that were working with the women to get them ready for the Olympics. They went off to the under-23 Utah tournament to play there. So we've got it coming. We've got it coming through. But again, right, like all of these things, it takes money to make it happen.
Right.
And the Golden Eagles financed a lot of this.
Yeah.
Or, sadly, in our game at the moment, it's got to be self-funded. And we've got to get to a position where our pathways pieces, we're creating an international competitive program as well as real development opportunities so they understand what it is to tour, play against oppositions around the world. You know, we talk about that World under 18s that we go to New Zealand. Again, funded by, Mark Cuban was very generous with us, as were the Golden Eagles last year. But we've got to make sure that we go to these tournaments because that's where we found Lucas Lecamp, Noah Brown and Nick Hardwick 5-6 years ago. So you can see how we can build this, but we need to create these pathway programs, and we need to make sure that our pathways is not agenda driven. And what I mean by that is that we're not driving an agenda to be a 15s player. We're not driving an agenda to be a 7s player. We're creating opportunities for these players. Don't want the coaches making those decisions. There has to be a tip of the spear that has no agenda but makes player-centered decisions for them. You know, we need to see. I look at Keelan Farrell in the 20s, right? He was found via the 7s, but then we pushed him to the 20s. Now he'll be with the 23s. Now we need to see Don Bessad play 7s because that's an exciting talent that could end up going across the 2 as he evolves before he makes the decision. You know, we've got Corbin Smith. Hopefully he'll be fit to play in the 23s. But, you know, all of these names should be creating, you know, we should be salivating at, because if we can nurture them, we're in a good place. There are 2 little areas we need to focus on delivery. We do need to find that crossover athlete that will replace the unique speed that we had with Carlin and Perry. We were blessed. But let's not forget, right? Everybody was very good at digging out what Carlin and Perry couldn't do.
Yeah.
And when they were in their younger years, making a lot of mistakes, or Perry's latter younger years, as he found his way on the, you know, we needed, rather than celebrate what they were sensational at, we were very good at knocking them down at what they were rubbish at or what they were developing at. So, but I do think we've got to find a way to identify some of those players, but then we've got to have the place to be able to incubate and develop them, as well as giving them the competition schedules. Now, that, again, takes money, as well as systems and processes. And then the other piece we need to develop is we've never really ever replaced Falau Nua and his kickstart, his restart capability. Yes, we've got young tempo playmakers in Neymar and Tala, and their kicking is developing. And we've got Peter Seo Jr. and we've got other guys coming through. But people never realise what they missed until it's gone. Falau Nua's restart capability was unbelievable. And with that aerial people we had, Danny, Matai, Martin, Perry, he put it on a sixpence. And I think that is an area that we've missed.
Yeah.
And you know that they're a unique breed. There was him and there was Nathan Hirayama for Canada. When again, what happened to Canada when Hirayama finished? You know, need we say any more there? You know, I think we've done a decent job to be where we are. So I think we're in a good place, if I'm honest with you. I think people need to realise, and again, it's no disrespect, the Club Sevens is a very different level and a very different game to the international game. There are, if Folau New ever played Club Sevens, he would be average. Because it doesn't suit the way that he plays, but he excels internationally. And that's no disrespect, because there are some club players that tear it up every year on the Club National Sevens. When they come up to the next level, they're found wanting. And again, people need to appreciate and understand that it doesn't always work that way. Like Lucas Lecamp was relatively average at Club Sevens, but he was our best player in the Olympics.
Why is that? What is the major?
So when players excel at Club Sevens, it's played at a very different pace, right? So if you can live at that place, right, and you can operate there, then all of a sudden you can do some special things. But as soon as the pace rises, then all of a sudden you're 2 steps behind, or you're not quite as physical, or you're not as quite as aerially adept as somebody else, because they've all got an X factor. Because, you know, everybody, if you're good at everything at Club Sevens, you'll excel. But if you don't have X factor at one particular thing, then you'll be found wanting on the world circuit. Whereas someone like Folau, his X factor was his restart capability. So the ability to put kicks on a restart. So he's only as good as his aerialists, but he'll make sure that his aerialists excel. But also his thing was this razor sharp thought. He saw stuff before anybody else. But Club Sevens, that level of player doesn't always see it as well. Whereas internationally they do. So all of a sudden, Menels, Folau becomes ridiculously important to moving a ball around. So that's what I mean by that type of thing. Right? Whereas like a Lucas Lecamp, when he was at club, he did okay. He was younger, agreed, but he did all right. But then when he stepped up internationally, all of a sudden, because people are worried about these other players, it allows him the space to operate. And we just got to realise and recognise that that's a great starting point. But when we've seen our best Club Sevens, like let's just take NAV Sevens, they've got abroad to compete. They've found it difficult when it gets to the knockout rounds when you come to mature rugby nations, which is why we need that international invitation competition program for our under-23s, our 18s, and our Falcons, because that's where you test yourself. It's no good being the best in your own backyard. You've got to go to somebody else's backyard and be able to compete. That's why going to Fiji every year with the Falcons is a huge learning curve. Whilst the results might not always go your way, but you'll come away going, wow, okay, now I kind of understand what's required and what's expected if I want to excel at the top level, not be a big fish at the domestic level. So it's not a disrespectful thing. It's just, it is what it is, right? It looked to me like the Club Sevens was even more competitive this year than it was last year. And I think what we've seen since COVID is it's slowly recovering, isn't it? That one in Kansas was decent. Then COVID ruined us. We've now found our way, and we're starting to see Club Sevens kind of build in its kind of evolution again, which is great. And I think Rugby Town's doing the same, and we need to build on that in the rugby landscape.
Yeah, Fisher, real quick, can you jump in? Mike, looking back at players, the older crew, are there some players that had it, but for whatever reason, injury, family, or whatever, just, like, say, Carlin Isles, he had, we know his story. Are there some other players you can talk about that they were so good, but just didn't have, the breaks just weren't going their way?
You know what? We did see the best of him.
Yeah.
We did see the best of him, this player, but he was robbed by injury, and that's Ben Pinkelman.
Oh, yeah.
Like Ben Pinkelman, I remember, like Pinky, oh man. So when he came to me, and he's still at university, and he came to camp, and like, oh, this boy's decent, and he's like, yeah, he's great now, but he's got back college now, he's going to sit for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then he came in, and we spoke with him. Man's worked with his mum to get him to come to a couple of tournaments, and he just got it. He just needed the confidence and belief as a young man. And you think he went to 2016 as a 21-year-old and more than held his own. And then he just kicked on. He made the dream team. He was only 23, 24. Made the dream team. He was flying, yeah. And then he got that back injury. Then COVID happened, and he worked. You've never seen a bloke so committed to try and do everything he can to get back. And he went to the Quest of Gold before Tokyo. And I sat with his mum and his dad. I was like, look, I'm worried that he's just pushing too hard here, and we could have a problem. And he had to withdraw himself, and he missed out on that. And then he still had a crack at coming back for this one because he wanted to leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
But if Pinky had remained healthy, oh my Lord, like, I mean, he was a turnover machine, and he did all the. Excuse my French, he did all the shitty work to allow everybody else to do their work.
Yeah.
And he was, we were so blessed to have him where we did, but he would have been an all-time great. He would have been up there,
Yeah.
We talk about, boom boy Danny Barrett. He was, again, phenomenal for his own kind of USP. And likewise for Lau, Perry, Yusefo, Carlin, Madison, Kayvon, like Pinkelman, again, like we saw so much of him, but we never saw the truly the best of him because he was robbed of him. I mean, we're so lucky that he's coaching the under-23s. I mean, he's going to be an absolutely phenomenal coach if he wants to do it. If he wants to do it right, he's the future.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good segue, Mike. Maybe that's a good segue here.
But he is the future. Like, I mean, I've been training and grooming him for 2 years and 3 years, but he wants to go back to Colorado, right? And he's going to do the 23s, and who knows? Maybe not now, but maybe in the future. But technically, he's brilliant. Tactically, he's very, very astute, massive thinker. We're working on his people skills, but like all young men. Right? I remember some of my conversations. I mean, I was awful. So, he probably some of mine as an old man, to be fair. He's got it all. He could be good. He will be good. So I mean, I'm sure we're going. I know we were going on the segue board. But yeah, if I had to pick one, it would be him.
Okay. So
had a decent career as it was.
Yeah.
So
the segue, we know USA is currently looking for a new head coach. Bill has put in his resume, so he appreciates a good word.
Yeah, please put it in for me.
Just quick words you want me to do.
Well, I've heard the way you write on social media, so don't use any of those words.
Well, I guess so. The question, Mike, are you involved in the search to not involved? Okay, got it. There you go.
No, that was one of my dogs there, dude.
Oh,
everywhere you learn his dogs. No, I'm not involved. I think, like I say, USA Rugby have decided to run that on their own. It'd be interesting. Like, I'm sure overseas people that are interested will want to understand the lay of the land, and maybe they'll get in contact. But I won't be involved in the recruitment process or the vetting process. No, that's down to tomorrow.
Well, that's. I mean, you mentioned that there, like, whoever comes on, they got to understand the lay of the land. I mean, through the decade that you were coaching the men's program, I mean, what was the most difficult part of the job? Was it COVID, injuries, lay of the land, Hong Kong Sevens just not being the same after
USA Rugby?
I mean, you want me to be honest? I mean, let's stay how it is. My title said head coach. I wish that was my job, and I think that's the piece that Tamara is trying to change. Right, she's going to take the burden of all the off-pitch bureaucracy, politics, fundraising, philanthropy, all processes around contracts, managing, managing World Rugby, managing USOPC. She's going to take on all of that, and that's wonderful, which then means that the head coach can focus on coaching, and being the best thing for the team. So, the landscape may be different, right, for that new individual in. what I had, the hardest thing was the fact that I was left in a vacuum, and we had to row our own boat. And being candid with you, at dark times, I was so fortunate I had the wisdom and the guidance of some very successful businessmen in the Golden Eagles, because we had to plot and we had to navigate. And yeah, I'm excited to see the new senior leadership at USA Rugby. They need to make some waves, and they need to change some things. And you know, Bill Gorham's got a big job ahead of him, as has Tamara Shepherd, and hopefully they're up for the challenge, because they're underdogs right now, and I hope that they have that ambition and they want to go out there and do a job. And you know, from what I've seen so far, I've got every reason to think that they've got a shot of being successful.
So, Mike, you mentioned your son earlier. Is that Harrison? That Lucas. Got the. Okay, but your son Harrison plays fly half at Titans, I believe it is. Harrison. When he was at University of Exeter, played at Taunton. Yes. Okay, we're getting there. Could we possibly see you heading up their sevens program?
Taunton's in southwest England. Well, I'm in southeast London. So now Harrison's moved back to London now. He's finished university, and he'll join Isha in the National One League and try and fight for a place there. Whereas Lucas has just started at Harlequins last week. So no, you won't be seeing me. Do you know what? I'm still looking forward. I've missed so much of them and their rugby and their development. Yeah. I've had to develop them from afar, just sitting at the end of the pitch and being a dad with a cup of tea and watching them enjoy the game, make good plays, make bad plays. And if they ask what I think, I'll tell them. If they don't, then I'll just say, well played, son, let's crack on. And let's enjoy the game. So, yeah, I know. I need a little bit of rest.
So their coaches don't see you showing up to the pitch and going, "Oh, here he goes. He's gonna tell us how to do this."
But honestly, this will make you giggle. This will make you giggle because nobody in the USA rugby landscape would believe this. I am the quietest person in the world when I go and watch my sons play rugby. I stand at the end of the pitch. I don't stand on the side because I don't want to get caught up in the mess and the melee. And I know what I'm like. If there's an argument, I'll go and find it. So I sit at the end and I just watch quietly, and people will come and go, "What do you think?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm just having a great time." Like, if you want to stay with me, that's fine. But this is not a talking exercise. This is a watching exercise. If not, then I'll just wander off. Honestly, I know it's very, very important that both of my boys find their own way, and the last thing they need is that overbearing dad at the end of the pitch. You know, I can be the grumpy, overbearing coach when it's my performance team I need to worry about, but I'm there to support. I'm there to be their father and love them and hopefully let them find their way. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? That's your job. That's your job as a coach. That's your job as a mentor. That's your job as a father. And I did try and do that with the boys at the sevens program on and off the pitch, because you know your rugby life is a short part of your life, and you can use it to prepare you for what comes next. You know, a good human being, and you live by the values of rugby, then more often than not you'll do all right.
So, Mike, now you just said you're taking some time doing the most important thing ever, being a dad. I'm assuming you've had phone calls from people about work, but is there a dream job? And we might be breaking World Rugby laws or rules talking about this, but is there a dream gig out there that you said, if they call, I'm taking it?
I mean, look, let's be perfectly blunt. I am going to have to work, right, lads? Just trust me, I'm going to have to work.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I'm going to have to. I will need a job. But the big thing I want to be involved in a project that is going to make a difference. I want to be in high performance sport, whether it's in high performance sport in terms of with a team, or whether it's with a commercial part of an organisation, or whether it's building a project or a group of events that will make the game better. I don't necessarily need to be the man on the touchline, right? I can be the man behind the man on the touchline and try and make everything better for them. You know, I think the world is changing. I think the generations and the way that they learn and the way they interact are changing. And I'm 52 now, do you know what I mean? There's not many of these 22-year-olds that want to listen to a 52-year-old bloke. I mean, definitely not my two sons, that's for sure. So I would look at those types of things equally, and and again, I feel like I'm sitting on a fence. If something floated my boat on the pitch, then because it was a challenge. Mm-hmm. The underdog comes at the flame is lit, and then the dog becomes the dog comes alive. So I'll take my time, and being candid as well, right? Hey, I've been so privileged to be in the job I'm in and be a part of elite sport. There's only limited opportunities as well, and there might not be another opportunity, and I might have to look at doing other things as well. And like I said, same as a player, same as a coach. This is what I do, not who I am, and I understand that, and I realise that, and I'm comfortable with that as well, right? So I'll find something will find me. Of that, I'm sure.
Mike, one final big question here, I guess. 10 years, that's a long time, right? And certainly ups and downs, and, that's life, right? But even though things may be hard or challenging, they were still fun, right? There were still moments there where excellence was achieved, or you just, you coached a great group of players and got to know them as players and as men, and etc. I mean, if you can, when I ask you, what are some of your best memories? What, immediately springs to mind?
I think seeing the faces when we won Twickenham 2015, because you saw them believe. I mean, literally, you know that monumental shot where Maddison get lifted like Dirty Dancing with Danny. But when you look into their eyes, you see they're alive, and you see the flame, right? And it's very different. It's so much like the smile. When I see a player smile, then I love that moment, and then I'm looking for the next moment, of course, but that's kind of the adrenaline junkie I am, and that's where I'm going to need counselling probably. But I tell you, other ones were when they roughed the field in Vegas, when we won Vegas. Holy moly! And let's talk about cosmopolitan, eclectic rugby landscape of USA. We had it all, and it was nuts. But it showed that the USA rugby community believed. And then when you feel and you have that sense, then you know that actually we're doing good here. And I was talking to people like AC, and he was saying that he was watching those types of situations in his high school dorms or his college dorms, thinking, I want to be that one day. I want to get there. And then he's here. There's a great short video in a Kayvon's Pioneers trailer where Kayvon's talking about his family and his sacrifices, and then they go to AC watching the boys training in LA going, I want to be a part of this. And then lo and behold, 3 years later, he's at the Olympics, he's part of it, and he's doing it. Same with Lucas LeCamp watching in Hong Kong, and Bizer and those boys. So again, this the circle of life, and inspiring the next generation is the most important thing. Like I said, results come and go, you win and you lose, but ultimately the inspiration to make the next man have a crack is everything. And all we can ever be grateful for, and I'm really, really proud of this, is I know deep down I've left it in a better place than I got it. And that's all you can do, and that's all I ever asked of every one of the players that comes and go. Be a good man and leave it in a better place. And then let the haters hate, let the lovers love, but be comfortable in yourself that you've done everything you can do to leave it in a better place. And I look at the men, and to a man, especially that original core group, and the way that this group are developing, they're very much doing that. They just need a little bit more time, consistency, and dare I say it, financial support. Where's that matching donor?
Mike, whatever you do next, whether you're pitch side or in an office with AC and no windows, Make sure you're still sporting those hats.
Yeah,
you got to be
bucket hat. Okay. Do you know who's doing those bucket hats? Do you know who makes those bucket hats? It's Patrick, right? Cable Williams is behind that.
Oh.
So Cable Williams, again, this is about trying to grow and, outside interest and outside businesses for life after. And he's done a fantastic job. And, again, the US rugby community need to get behind him. But again, it's not just rugby hats, right? It can be basketball, it can be baseball, it can be a college. There's a real opportunity for him there. But yeah, I mean, I love the bucket hat. You know what I mean? You've got to be fair, I've worn some absolute good ones and some absolute howlers.
Either way, you're not burning. You're not burning your face. Either way. Mike Friday, we said it earlier in the show. It really is a true honor. I mean, I speak for Fitzy here, I believe, to have you on again. It's been a blast talking to you all the time. And we really do appreciate your openness with us and the media, like you mentioned earlier. So, man, we hope this is not the last time we can speak together.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure I'll be around. I mean, the Golden Eagles are keen to get me about, and I'll always be supporting. I reckon I'll be at some of those Sevens events in one shape or form. And, I'm always around. Always got a view. You know that. Always get a pick.
Oh, yeah. Well, when we see each other somewhere again, first round's on you, and then...
No problem. Second or third on you.
Okay. Cheap stuff. All right. Mike Friday, thank you again so much. Take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Cheers, lads. Be good.
Cheers. Thanks. Yeah, again, usual, another fantastic conversation with Mike Friday. It's just, he was, I love what you said earlier, Fitzy, about, the ups and downs. You got to take the good with the bad. He hears the people talking on social media, online, whatever else. He's got to go, or he's doing great, whatever else. And he handles this so well. And, it's just always a joy to talk to the guy and be able to joke with him. And you did hear, does get the first round. And after that round, it is the Irish goodbye for me. I'm leaving the bar.
I mean, we talked for an hour. We probably could have gone for another hour.
Yeah, 100%. I'm out of, I don't know what else to say. All right, that's a good one, man. I'm looking forward to hearing from him again. And everyone, keep an eye on social media. I know he says he's going to be with his family for a while, but he's got to be getting phone calls from everyone to coach at that next level, because there's no bigger name in World Rugby than Mike Friday. So good luck to him. Fitzy, good luck to you, whatever you're doing next. And I'm going to say good luck to me, too, for whatever's going on. Thank you all for tuning in. And please give us a like, follow, and subscribe to the show. Check us out on your favorite podcast player. And have a good one, everybody. We'll chat again soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey, it is Ryan Seacrest. There's something so thrilling about playing Chumba Casino. Maybe it's the simple reminder that with a little luck, anything is possible. ChumbaCasino.com has hundreds of social casino-style games to choose from with new game releases each week. Play for free anytime, anywhere, for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.